Have you ever dreamed of standing on stage, clutching Hollywood's most coveted prize, the Oscar, and imagined actually saying no to it? It sounds impossible, even crazy, right? But surprisingly, throughout Hollywood history, iconic actors have turned their backs on Oscar gold, leaving audiences stunned. From dramatic boycotts to principled protests, the reasons behind their shocking refusals reveal deep truths about fame, politics, and personal values. Today, we'll explore the fascinating and sometimes jaw-dropping stories of 17 legendary stars from Hollywood's golden age who either refused, boycotted, or quietly rejected the Academy Awards. These are the hidden stories Hollywood might prefer you didn't hear. Buckle up, because you're about to discover the shocking truth behind why these stars turned down the Oscar. Marlon Brando. When Marlon Brando won Best Actor for The Godfather in 1973, Hollywood braced itself for another enigmatic acceptance speech from its most unpredictable star. However, what happened next left the world stunned. Instead of Brando appearing, Native American activist Saiene Littlefeather walked onto the Oscar stage to politely but firmly decline the award on his behalf. The reason? Brando was protesting Hollywood's long-standing mistreatment and misrepresentation of Native Americans, specifically pointing to the stereotypes perpetuated in movies and television. In her brief, memorable speech, interrupted by boos and applause, Littlefeather explained Brando's refusal was motivated by his activism. According to biographer Peter Manso, Brando had become deeply involved in Native American rights, passionately embracing their cause after witnessing injustices firsthand. Reports from the time indicate Brando had initially written a 15-page speech, but due to Oscar restrictions, Littlefeather delivered a condensed version. In later interviews, she revealed she faced intense backlash and threats following the event, but Brando remained steadfast, never regretting his choice. The event changed the Academy forever. It raised awareness about indigenous rights and challenged Hollywood's conscience. Documents released decades later confirmed Brando's sincerity and deep personal commitment to social justice, solidifying the event as one of Oscar history's most iconic moments. George C. Scott. George C. Scott's towering portrayal of General Patton earned him critical acclaim, and in 1971, he received the Oscar for Best Actor. But Scott never showed up to accept it. His absence wasn't due to scheduling conflicts or illness. Instead, he openly rejected the award, famously labeling the Oscars a 2-hour meat parade, reducing art to competition. Scott passionately believed acting was a craft that shouldn't be ranked like a sporting event. Biographer David Sheward, in his book Rage and Glory, describes Scott as deeply contemptuous of Hollywood's commercialism. Friends and colleagues noted his disdain wasn't an act or publicity stunt. Scott genuinely detested the superficiality of the Oscars, a viewpoint he'd openly expressed for years. Newspaper articles from 1971 detail the actor's decision as highly controversial, sparking heated debates within the industry about the purpose and authenticity of the Academy Awards. Scott's refusal didn't harm his career, but rather cemented his image as a rebellious icon, unafraid to challenge Hollywood norms. According to film historian Leonard Maltin, Scott's stand actually influenced how future generations viewed the Oscars, inspiring actors to prioritize personal integrity over Hollywood glamour. Scott never regretted his decision, maintaining until his death that acting should be respected as art, not as competition. Dudley Nichols. The first person ever to refuse an Oscar wasn't an actor, but screenwriter Dudley Nichols. Nichols won Best Screenplay for John Ford's The Informer in 1935, but shocked Hollywood by declining the prestigious honor. At the time, Nichols was deeply involved in a fierce dispute between the Academy and the newly formed Screenwriters Guild. His refusal was not personal pride, but solidarity with striking writers. Historian Carrie Beauchamp documents in her comprehensive study, Without Lying Down, how Nichols' courageous stance symbolized the struggle writers faced against unfair Hollywood contracts and exploitation. The Academy repeatedly tried to persuade Nichols to accept, even mailing him the statuette. He returned it unopened, emphasizing his commitment to the Guild's cause. Newspaper archives from the era reported this unprecedented act as scandalous, fueling intense debates about workers' rights and unionization within Hollywood. Nichols eventually accepted his Oscar privately years later, but only after substantial progress had been made toward fairer conditions for writers. His courageous stance significantly boosted union membership and forever altered the relationship between the Academy and Hollywood's creative talent, Katherine Hepburn. Katherine Hepburn, an icon of American cinema, holds the record for the most Best Actress Oscars, with 4 wins over her illustrious career. Yet, in a move that defied Hollywood norms, she never attended the Academy Awards to accept any of them. Her absence wasn't due to oversight or scheduling conflicts, but stemmed from a deep-seated belief in the sanctity of her craft over the spectacle of awards. Hepburn's first Oscar came in 1934 for her role in Morning Glory. Despite the honor, she chose not to attend the ceremony. This decision set a precedent for the rest of her career. She went on to win Best Actress for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner in 1967, The Lion in Winter in 1968, and On Golden Pond in 1981. Yet she remained absent from each ceremony. Her stance was clear: prizes are nothing. My prize is my work. Her solitary appearance at the Oscars occurred in 1974, not as a nominee but as a presenter. She took the stage to present the Irving G. Thalberg Memorial Award to producer Lawrence Weingarten. This rare appearance was not a concession to the Academy, but a tribute to a friend and colleague. Hepburn's disdain for the Oscars wasn't a rejection of recognition, but a statement against the commercialization of art. She believed that true acting was about authenticity and dedication, not competition. Her legacy is a testament to her principles, reminding us that true artistry often lies in the work itself, not in the accolades it garners. Paul Newman. Paul Newman, with his piercing blue eyes and charismatic screen presence, was one of Hollywood's most enduring leading men. Despite his immense popularity and critical acclaim, the Academy Awards eluded him for decades. Newman received his first Oscar nomination for Best Actor in 1958 for Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and over the next 2 decades, he garnered several more nominations for films like The Hustler, HUD, Cool Hand Luke, and The Verdict. Yet, each time, the coveted statuette slipped through his fingers. In 1985, the Academy decided to honor Newman with an honorary Oscar, acknowledging his outstanding contributions to film. However, Newman declined to attend the ceremony, expressing discomfort with the idea of receiving an award that felt like a consolation prize. He believed that awards should be earned through competition, not bestowed as a gesture of goodwill. Ironically, the following year, Newman won the Best Actor Oscar for reprising his role as Fast Eddie Felson in Martin Scorsese's The Color of Money. This win was seen by many as the Academy's attempt to rectify past oversights. Newman accepted the award, but chose not to attend the ceremony, maintaining his stance on the nature of such accolades. Newman's relationship with the Oscars was emblematic of his broader philosophy, a commitment to authenticity over accolades. He once remarked, "I don't believe in awards. It's like picking the prettiest girl on the block." For Newman, the true reward was the work itself and the impact it had on audiences. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor was no stranger to the spotlight, yet her relationship with the Academy Awards was surprisingly conflicted. By 1966, she had already built a reputation as one of Hollywood's most talented and glamorous stars. That year, she was nominated for her intense, emotionally raw performance in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, a role that demanded every ounce of her skill and vulnerability. Despite the overwhelming acclaim, Taylor was hesitant about attending the ceremony. Privately, Taylor struggled with the competitive atmosphere of the Oscars. She was deeply affected by the fact that her husband and co-star, Richard Burton, had been nominated several times but had never won. There was a fear, both personal and public, that she might win while he did not. That tension loomed large in her mind as the date approached. She reportedly considered skipping the ceremony entirely. Her health was also fragile. She had survived a near-death experience only a few years earlier and remained weary of stressful public appearances. When she did decide to attend, it was with visible reluctance, dressed immaculately but emotionally guarded. When her name was announced as Best Actress, she accepted with grace, but without the typical fanfare. Behind her poised exterior was a woman wrestling with fame's cost. Despite winning 2 Academy Awards, Taylor rarely celebrated the wins publicly or allowed them to define her legacy. Her ambivalence toward the Oscars wasn't about ego. It was about love, loyalty, and a lifelong discomfort with the industry's obsession with validation. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo, one of the most mysterious and revered actresses in cinema history, was nominated 3 times for an Academy Award during the 1930s. Despite her critical acclaim and international fame, she never attended a single Oscars ceremony. In fact, Garbo's relationship with fame was defined by retreat. Her famous quote, "I want to be alone," wasn't just a line from her film Grand Hotel. It became a symbol of her real-life philosophy. Garbo wasn't ungrateful. She respected the art of cinema and the audiences who adored her, but she deeply disliked public spectacle. Hollywood's glitzy award shows represented everything she avoided: press attention, shallow praise, and commercial promotion. While studios often begged her to attend events, Garbo refused, choosing privacy over accolades every time. During the height of her career, Garbo received Oscar nominations for Anna Christie in 1930, Romance in 1930, and Camille in 1936, but she was never awarded competitively. In 1955, the Academy offered her an honorary Oscar for her unforgettable screen performances, but she declined to attend even that tribute. The statuette was accepted on her behalf by a studio representative, while Garbo remained in New York, far removed from Hollywood's spotlight. What makes Garbo's story remarkable is how her mystique only grew stronger through these refusals. In an era that devoured celebrity visibility, she proved that mystery could be more powerful than fame. Her absence spoke louder than applause. She left Hollywood early, never to return, and her legacy became that of a true cinematic ghost, haunting, timeless, and untouchable. John Gilgood. Sir John Gilgood, one of the most revered figures in 20th century theater and film, brought a Shakespearean dignity to every role he touched. In 1981, he charmed global audiences with his portrayal of the sardonic yet lovable butler, Hobson, in Arthur. The performance won him the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in 1982. But in classic Gilgood fashion, he didn't attend the ceremony, not because he was ungrateful, but because he simply didn't see the point. Gilgood had long been suspicious of the Hollywood award scene. In interviews, he quipped about the oddness of actors being judged competitively, as if art could be measured like sport. Despite decades of stage and screen brilliance, he found the idea of campaigning for an Oscar distasteful. When he won, he was in London, working quietly, as always. The Oscar was mailed to him, and he famously kept it in his bathroom, later telling friends the trophy looked absurd in a house filled with antique furniture. That act wasn't about mockery. It was a reflection of his modesty, an inability or refusal to take Hollywood adulation too seriously. What made Gilgood remarkable wasn't just his talent, but his attitude. He once described acting as a private profession done in public, and his rejection of Oscar showmanship only solidified that belief. To Gilgood, the real prize was a well-crafted performance, not a televised ceremony. In declining the limelight, he quietly taught Hollywood a lesson in dignity. Paul Scofield. Paul Scofield's portrayal of Sir Thomas More in A Man for All Seasons earned him the Best Actor Oscar in 1967. It was a performance of immense depth, combining moral gravity with emotional restraint, an embodiment of integrity both on screen and off. But true to character, Scofield didn't show up to accept the award. He wasn't ill, nor was he protesting anything. He simply didn't want to go. Scofield was deeply devoted to theater and intensely private. The spotlight, he once said, made him uncomfortable. In interviews, he expressed disdain for celebrity culture, saying he preferred the company of books and quiet country life to any Hollywood red carpet. When the Academy contacted him, he politely declined the invitation, preferring to stay in England with his family. What's more striking is that Scofield didn't even watch the broadcast. For him, the award was appreciated but irrelevant to the work. He even turned down a knighthood later in life, citing his desire to remain just an actor. His Oscar was accepted on his behalf, and he quietly added it to a modest shelf at home. Unlike many peers who used the award as leverage for larger roles or higher pay, Scofield never used his win for personal gain. He continued acting in stage productions and small films, far from the Hollywood spotlight. Scofield's story is a testament to artistic purity. He wasn't a recluse or a protester. He was a craftsman, loyal to his principles, uninterested in the pageantry that came with public praise. Anne Bancroft. Anne Bancroft's powerful performance as Annie Sullivan in The Miracle Worker earned her the Best Actress Oscar in 1963. Yet, when her name was announced, it wasn't Bancroft who took the stage, it was Joan Crawford. This unexpected substitution became one of Oscar history's most infamous moments. Built on visibility, some stars shine brightest when they simply do their job and let the work speak for itself. Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick was a master of cinema, a director who reshaped film language with titles like 2001, A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange, and The Shining. Yet, despite being nominated for 13 Oscars over his career, he never once attended the Academy Awards. When he won his only Oscar, for Best Visual Effects for 2001 and 1969, he didn't bother showing up to collect it. Kubrick's refusal to attend wasn't fueled by protest, but by personality. He was notoriously reclusive, even reclusive to a fault. Based in England, far from Hollywood, he preferred the solitude of editing rooms and long writing nights over the glare of red carpets. He hated flying, distrusted public events, and believed that awards ceremonies trivialized the seriousness of filmmaking. Colleagues described Kubrick as someone who had no time for distractions. When asked about the Oscars, he would deflect or express discomfort at the idea of filmmakers competing for gold statues. For him, cinema was about truth, obsession, and perfection, not acceptance speeches and studio lobbying. His only Oscar statuette was reportedly kept in a nondescript spot in his home, treated more like a paperweight than a prize. Despite this distance, Kubrick remained a towering influence in film, with directors and actors considering his approval far more meaningful than any Academy recognition. To this day, his absence at the Oscars is seen not as a slight, but as part of his legend, a man so devoted to his craft, he had no time for applause. Julie Andrews. Julie Andrews' Oscar win for Mary Poppins in 1965 was a magical moment for audiences, but one tinged with irony. Though Andrews was thrilled to win Best Actress, the role only came to her because she had been passed over by Warner Brothers for the screen adaptation of My Fair Lady, a role she originated on stage. Studio executives chose Audrey Hepburn instead, citing box office appeal. That decision, and the backlash it generated, added emotional weight to Andrews' eventual triumph. Unlike others on this list, Andrews did attend the ceremony and accepted her award with grace. But behind her poised exterior was someone who viewed the honor with quiet skepticism. She knew the politics behind casting choices. She knew she had been underestimated and now, ironically, rewarded by the very system that had dismissed her. In interviews, Andrews later admitted to feeling a strange mix of validation and discomfort. Winning for Mary Poppins, a whimsical role, felt less serious compared to the dramatic depth she'd shown on stage, but she was grateful nonetheless. Despite multiple nominations afterward, Andrews never won another Oscar. She continued to work across film, television, and stage, often eschewing the Hollywood spotlight in favor of projects that mattered to her artistically. Her humility remained intact throughout her career. Andrews once said, "I don't need a trophy to tell me I've done a good job." She was right. Her legacy rests not in awards, but in timeless performances that enchanted generations. Joan Crawford's Oscar win for Mildred Pierce in 1946 came during one of the most calculated publicity stunts in Academy history. Days before the ceremony, Crawford announced she was too ill with the flu to attend. She remained home in bed, or so the public was told, but insiders later revealed she had staged her absence out of fear of losing in front of her peers in the press. Crawford's career had been in decline when she landed the role of the fiercely ambitious mother in Mildred Pierce. The performance was a critical comeback, and she wanted the win desperately. But the idea of sitting in the audience, possibly watching someone else take the prize, was too much for her to bear. So, she waited at home in full makeup and silk pajamas, surrounded by photographers and press. When her name was announced, a team rushed the statuette to her home. Cameras flashed as she posed in bed, Oscar in hand. The image quickly circulated in newspapers worldwide. It was glamour, orchestrated. Despite the drama, Crawford's performance remains one of the finest of her career. But the way she accepted the award became as famous as the role itself. It revealed her complex relationship with fame, a woman who needed the spotlight but feared its cruelty. For Joan Crawford, the Oscar was more than an award. It was validation, survival, and strategy, all rolled into one glittering moment beneath silk sheets. Bette Davis. Bette Davis was a force of nature, on screen and off. Known for her electrifying performances and razor-sharp wit, Davis won 2 Oscars during her career, one for Dangerous in 1936 and another for Jezebel in 1939. But while she accepted her wins, she made no secret of her deep cynicism about the Academy Awards system. Davis believed the Oscars were often political, driven more by studio campaigns and favoritism than genuine artistic merit. In the 1930s, she was famously nominated for Dangerous only after a public outcry over her being snubbed for Of Human Bondage. Even when she won, many critics and fans saw the award as compensation for that earlier oversight, something Davis herself hinted at in later interviews. She didn't shy away from voicing her opinions even when it made others uncomfortable. She was one of the first major stars to publicly challenge the Academy's procedures. She once said, "The Oscars are not always about talent. They're about timing, politics, and studio pull." In the 1960s, her disdain boiled over when Joan Crawford, her co-star and longtime rival, accepted Anne Bancroft's Oscar on stage, allegedly to upstage Davis, who was also nominated that year. Davis was furious and later called the entire event a publicity circus. Despite her complicated relationship with the Academy, Davis remains one of the most nominated actresses in history. Her talent was undeniable, but she refused to let Hollywood pat itself on the back without critique. In the end, Bette Davis didn't need the Academy's approval. She built her legacy on talent, grit, and the boldness to call out hypocrisy, even when the spotlight was brightest. Henry Fonda. Henry Fonda was one of the most revered actors of Hollywood's golden age, a man whose career spanned over 5 decades, with roles that defined American cinema. Despite a legacy that included The Grapes of Wrath, 12 Angry Men, and Mr. Roberts, Fonda's relationship with the Academy Awards was marked by near misses and long delays. He received his first Oscar nomination in 1941 for The Grapes of Wrath, but the win eluded him, and for decades, the Academy seemed to overlook him. By the late 1970s, Fonda's health was rapidly declining. His performances had not lost their quiet power, but the man himself had grown weary and frail. In 1980, the Academy finally awarded him an honorary Oscar, recognizing a career of cinematic excellence. Too ill to attend the ceremony, Fonda accepted the award from his home. The Academy sent a crew to record a short message, and even then, his humility shone through. There was no self-praise, only gratitude. The following year, Fonda delivered what would become his final film performance in On Golden Pond, opposite his daughter, Jane Fonda, and Katherine Hepburn. In 1982, he was finally awarded a competitive Oscar for Best Actor. Once again, he was too ill to attend. Jane accepted the award on his behalf, her voice cracking with emotion as she paid tribute to her father. Just months later, Henry Fonda passed away. His posthumous Oscar symbolized not only the industry's overdue recognition, but also a bittersweet farewell to one of its finest actors. In the end, the man who had defined dignity on screen was quietly honored in the only way the Academy knew how, just in time: Vivien Lee. Vivien Lee remains one of the most captivating actresses of the 20th century, known for her dazzling beauty and devastatingly powerful performances. She won 2 Academy Awards for Best Actress, first in 1940 for Gone with the Wind, and again in 1952 for her haunting portrayal of Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire. Yet, despite these triumphs, Lee never embraced the Hollywood machine, and her second Oscar was accepted far from the glitz of the Dolby Theater. By 1952, Lee had already distanced herself from Hollywood's social scene. She was based in London, and unlike many of her peers, preferred the discipline and intimacy of the British stage to the spectacle of the American film industry. When her name was announced as the winner, she wasn't in Los Angeles. She was at home in England, recovering from a respiratory illness and dealing with the early symptoms of what would later be diagnosed as bipolar disorder. Her absence wasn't scandalous, just characteristic. Lee had always been a reluctant celebrity. The Academy arranged for the award to be delivered overseas, and it was accepted on her behalf by representatives in the U.S. press. What makes Lee's story poignant is how her personal battles paralleled her most iconic roles. Like Blanche Dubois, she fought inner demons with a brave face. The Oscar she won for portraying a fragile, fractured woman came at a time when Lee herself was beginning to fray. In Hollywood, absence often creates mystery. For Vivien Lee, it wasn't a strategy, it was survival. Her performances burned brightly, even as she stepped away from the spotlight. Her legacy remains untouched, her brilliance undimmed. Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper was the embodiment of the strong, silent American hero. With a career spanning nearly 4 decades, he became a symbol of quiet strength, moral integrity, and rugged charm in films like Sergeant York, High Noon, and Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. He won 2 competitive Academy Awards for Best Actor, but his final Oscar, the 1961 Honorary Award, was delivered under somber circumstances. By 1961, Cooper was gravely ill with prostate cancer that had spread to his bones. The Academy, fully aware of his condition, wanted to honor him one last time. The plan was to surprise him at the ceremony, but as his health rapidly declined, the idea of Cooper attending became impossible. His dear friend, James Stewart, accepted the award on his behalf in what became one of the most emotional moments in Oscar history. Stewart, himself a Hollywood giant and known for his own stoic demeanor, struggled to contain his tears as he told the audience that Cooper simply couldn't be there. His voice broke as he said, "I know that Coop is watching, and I know how deeply touched he is by this honor." Cooper, watching the broadcast from his home, was reportedly moved but characteristically humble. A few weeks later, on May 13, 1961, Gary Cooper passed away. His honorary Oscar wasn't just a recognition of his contributions to film, it was a farewell, a final bow from an industry that had built itself, in part, on his image. In life, Cooper had often avoided the spotlight. In death, it found him. Quiet, dignified, unforgettable. And there you have it, the stunning, sometimes controversial reasons why these iconic Hollywood legends turned away from the Oscar spotlight. From principled protests to personal disdain, each refusal reveals a side of Hollywood that goes far beyond glamour, reflecting deeply human choices, values, and integrity. Which celebrity's reason surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this eye-opening journey behind Hollywood's glittering facade, don't forget to hit the like button and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and ring the bell to discover more hidden stories and shocking Hollywood secrets you won't hear anywhere else. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.